If you've landed here today like most people searching for the best hearing aids for 2026, then you're in exactly the right place. Because this is not your standard comparison video, and there is honestly nothing else like it online. And when I say best, I mean best speech and noise performance when fitted properly, best connectivity roadmap, and best day-to-day usability. So over the course of this video, I'm going to compare the key like-for-like features from every major hearing aid manufacturer, so that you can make an informed decision based on what these things can do, not just their marketing claims. And I'm going to look into everything that actually matters, from AI performance to sound samples, size, comfort, and usability in the real world. So let's get to it. So as I start, there's one important thing that I think it's worth sharing with you guys, and that's that my audiology practice is completely independent. And this means that I'm not tied to any one hearing aid manufacturer, and I get to choose from the best hearing aids on the market for every single patient who walks through my door. And as a result, I've had hands-on experience with every hearing aid manufacturer that's out there. And in this video, I'm going to put them head to head in a proper feature showdown to help you to work out which one actually makes sense for you. So whether you're upgrading your current hearing aids or buying your first pair, by the end of this video, you'll have the clarity and confidence you need before you next visit an audiologist. Going into 2026, there are a plethora of hearing aid styles available, ranging from the likes of the Phonak Lyric, which is Phonak's extended wear hearing aid that can be left in your ear for between 2 to 3 months at a time, to custom-made hearing aids, which neatly sit inside your ear, to the receiver and canal style, which sits behind your ear with a wire feeding sound down your ear canal, and then finally behind the ear hearing aids, which sit behind your ear and are coupled with a thin tube or standard ear mold. Now, building on a question I asked at the beginning of today's video, I would love to know what brought you here today. In a recent poll that I put out there in the world of YouTube, 25% of you watching are here looking at wearing hearing aids for the first time. So let me know which category you fit into in the comments beneath today's video so that I can tailor my videos for you going forwards. Are you an existing hearing aid user, or are you looking at hearing aids for the very first time? For most people, receiver and canal hearing aids are the best all-rounders when it comes to hearing aid styles. With versatile fittings, they're great in noise, and they're usually very comfortable, which is exactly why I'm covering them today. So in terms of the order of events for today's video, I'm going to start by physically comparing 2026's best hearing aids, and then I'll run through all of their individual features, covering the Oticon Intent, the Phonak Infinio, the Starkey Omega AI, the Widex Allure, the Signia IX, and Resound's Vivia hearing aids. So kicking off in chronological order, Signia currently have 4 receiver and canal hearing aids within their IX family of hearing aids, which were released in September 2023 and includes the Pure Charge & Go IX, the Pure Charge & Go TIX, the Pure Charge & Go BTC, and finally the Stiletto IX. Then in February 2024, Oticon released the Intent Mini-Rite, which is currently their only hearing aid available on their latest platform. The Resound Vivia was released in February 2025 and is also available in 3 different models. Firstly, the Vivia RIE 312, which uses a size 312 disposable battery. Then we have the Vivia RIE 13, which uses a size 13 disposable battery. And finally, the Vivia Micro RIE, which has to be one of the smallest rechargeable Auracast-ready hearing aids out there. In March 2025, Widex released their Allure platform and have a single hearing aid utilizing their latest technology, the RIC RD. Next, Starkey have a wider selection to choose from in their Omega AI family of hearing aids, which were released in October 2025 and includes 3 different receiver and canal models, from the MRIC R, the RIC RT, and the RIC 312. And then last, but by no means least, also in October 2025, Phonak unleashed the Audeo Infinio Ultra, which is available in 2 different models, the Audeo Infinio Ultra R and the Audeo Infinio Ultra Sphere. Now, of course, I'll break down and compare all of the individual features shortly, but if cosmetics is one of your main drivers and you ask me to rank my top hearing aids based on this alone, then the ReSound Vivia RIE is the smallest receiver in canal hearing aid available, followed by the Starkey Omega Emmerich R, then the Phonak Audeo Infinio, and finally the Widex Allure. I have to tell you though, I personally think that it would be a terrible idea to choose your next hearing aid based on how it looks, as the discretion of these hearing aids can come at a cost, and there are certain features missing on all of these hearing aids, which I'll expand upon throughout today's video. Saying that, if on the other hand you're interested in this new wave of fashionable hearing aids and you want to show them off rather than hide them, then Signia have this style available on their latest platform. It's also worth noting that Phonak have their Phonak Slim Audeo and Widex have their SmartRic Moment, but they're old tech now, so you'd technically be taking a step backwards if you were to go down that path. And personally, I would not recommend that based on the incredible new technology crammed into all of their new hearing aids. So here is just a very quick note on colours. I am not going to talk about colours today. Sorry to disappoint you, but there are far more interesting things to cover other than colours, and I want to keep today's video as short as possible. It's worth noting that each manufacturer has a broad range of colours to choose from, matching both skin and hair tone, and in my opinion, there isn't one specific manufacturer that stands out over and above the others. I would personally recommend, based on what most of my patients do, to select a hearing aid that best matches your hair colour. Now, I don't know if you're all aware of this, but not all hearing aids are designed for all degrees of hearing loss. And they all have an individual fitting range which you can compare to your audiogram to understand if they're technically suitable for you. Now, don't worry, I've done all of the hard work for you, and in a second I'll share the fitting ranges for all of the hearing aids that I'm showcasing today. Now, just as a side note, if you're thinking, well, I'll just get the most powerful hearing aid that's out there, so it will last as long as possible if my hearing changes. Well, you're right to an extent, this is helpful. However, in some instances, a more powerful hearing aid does require a more powerful speaker. And the more powerful the speaker, the bigger that it is. So again, if discretion is the most important thing for you, then selecting the correct power level is essential. On top of that, the frequency response will also be affected too, with more powerful speakers tending to provide less high frequency gain. So it's important that the power level is just right for your hearing loss. In my opinion, one of the many reasons that receiver and canal style of hearing aids are the best hearing aids available in 2026 is because their speakers are interchangeable, making them suitable for varying degrees of hearing loss. And so if your hearing happens to change over a period of time, you won't necessarily need to look for new hearing aids, as the hearing aid can be physically adapted to meet your needs over time. So the following images outline the fitting ranges for each hearing aid manufacturer, and if your hearing loss falls within the grey shaded area on each of these graphs, then they're technically suitable for you. Starting with Signia's family of hearing aids. Moving on, we have the Oticon Intent and its various receiver powers. Here you can see the ReSound Vivia fitting ranges, and you'll notice that ReSound also have a specialist receiver called Marie, which has some unique properties that I'll cover shortly. Now you can see the Widex Allure fitting range, and here are the Starkey Omega AI fitting ranges, which similarly to Oticon and Phonak have a broad degree of hearing loss that they're capable of dealing with. And then finally we have Phonak's Infinio Ultra fitting range, and you'll notice here a unique receiver as well called the MAV, which stands for Active Vent, and I'll come onto this shortly. Phonak's Active Vent is, without question, one of my favourite unique receiver technologies, which has been around for a few generations of hearing aids now. And I'd recommend that you stick around, as you'll like what this does. Within this custom mould, there's a built-in moving piston that changes its position depending on your listening environment, allowing more or less sound to be diverted naturally via your ear canal, or on the contrary, via the hearing aids. In turn, this can enhance how clearly you hear, how well you hear in noise, how well your voice sounds, and even how music or calls sound when they're being streamed from your phone. Now, if you're wondering why this matters, there are both positives and negatives to having your ear canals either open or closed, and depending on your hearing loss, sometimes it's beneficial to have a hearing aid that can do both on different occasions, which, until Active Vent was released by Phonak, this wasn't possible. For example, in a quiet environment, you might want the vent to be open, allowing all sound in and giving you a nice natural feeling connecting you with your environment. Yet when you're in noise, it's better to have your ears completely closed so that all of that sound that you're hearing around you is via your hearing aids, maximizing their functionality and their ability to remove that background noise. If you think about it, if there's any sound traveling down your ear canals which hasn't been through your hearing aids, then it won't have had any processing to clean it up. As far as its impact on music goes, when streaming from your phone, Active Vent would close, blocking sound both in and out, enhancing music and giving it greater depth and richness. Alternatively, ReSound have their own unique receiver technology called Marie, which stands for Microphone and Receiver In-Ear, and is the only receiver technology available that has extra microphones sitting at the entrance of your ear canal. ReSound boast that by having this extra microphone in the ear, this allows the hearing aid to take into account the shape and size of your personal anatomy, which can have a significant impact on the sound, giving you a more immersive hearing experience with greater depth and sense of spatial awareness, so being more aware of what's going on around you. This technology is automatically enabled in a quiet environment when you want to hear things from a 360-degree point of view. And then when they detect any degree of background noise, let's say in a restaurant for example, this additional microphone switches off and the directional microphones kick in, giving you speech understanding or better speech understanding in background noise. As a result, ReSound claims improved spatial cues and localization with this microphone activated, and many of the users that I've got wearing this tech report it sounding that things are just that little bit more 3D. Now, it isn't all rosy. I have to say that both of these unique receivers are far more prone to feedback compared to their conventional receiver counterparts. So when I fit them, I am very I'm very selective about the patients that I fit them to. But if you have a mild to moderate hearing loss, then they could be a fantastic option for you. So as far as you can tell from the fitting ranges on all of these hearing aids, they are pretty similar. So unless you have more of a severe to profound hearing loss, all of today's hearing aids could technically be suitable for you. Now, you may or you may not know that every receiver in canal hearing aid can be physically customized to suit your anatomy and the configuration of your hearing loss, using either a selection of rubber domes or something I'm a big fan of, a custom-made ear mold, which takes a couple of weeks longer and involves your audiologist taking an impression of your ear to have it made. Your audiologist should recommend the best tip for your anatomy and your hearing loss. Well, I say this, but at the same time, I would encourage you to take particular part in this part of today's video, as believe it or not, if this part of your hearing aid isn't right, then your hearing aids will not function as they should. And I come across plenty of patients that have purchased hearing aids elsewhere, and in my opinion, have been fitted with the wrong type of tip. More often than not, a rubber dome when they should have had a custom tip fitted. It's easy to think that the custom tip is just about comfort, but there is way more to it than you think when choosing the right setup for you. For example, it can affect both the clarity and the sharpness that your hearing aid provides. It can affect how full and rich it sounds, how good it sounds when streaming sound from your phone, and most importantly, I imagine for all of you watching today's video, how well your hearing aids will cope in background noise. Now, I'm not at all saying that this happens often, but the easiest option for both you and your audiologist is to fit you with a generic rubber tip. And as a result, I've had plenty of patients land in my clinic with hearing aids from other practices that haven't been working well, and all I've needed to do to help them was to make a custom mold. Well, that and perform real ear measurements and then sprinkle on a little bit of magic. And this has transformed the technology into a set of brand new hearing aids. So if I were you and being fitted with your hearing aids, I would ask your audiologist if custom tips are suitable for you, as I personally do try to fit them on as many ears as possible. Now, before I move on to some of the biggest features that I'm covering today, you will be surprised to hear, you're going to be shocked to hear that 75% of people watching my videos haven't yet hit the subscribe button. So I want to ask a huge favor from you. If you've ever enjoyed my videos, then please press the subscribe button somewhere down here. It helps me out more than I can say, and it helps to grow the channel. And the bigger the channel gets, the better these videos will get. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of today's video. When it comes to controlling hearing aids, some of my patients like to be able to adjust their settings and others don't like to make any adjustments whatsoever. And each hearing aid manufacturer has their own way of allowing you to make adjustments, which I've split into two groups for you today. Firstly, physical adjustments, and secondly, via each manufacturer's respective app. Now, believe it or not, I've been able to break down how you can physically adjust your hearing aids into three different categories today. The first group, which I personally feel are the most versatile and is therefore my favorite group, all have a rocker switch on the back of their hearing aids, meaning there are technically two buttons on each hearing aid to press. Being soft keys, this means that their function can be changed for your needs, such as being set up with a volume control or mute functionality, They can be used to change programs, such as connecting to a loop system, your TV, or a restaurant mode. Plus, the buttons can also be used for answering, hanging up, or even declining phone calls. The second group of hearing aids have a single button, which will still give you some degree of adjustability using the hearing aids themselves. But in my opinion, it's a little bit more fiddly. And what I mean by that is instead of having a volume up and down button on each hearing aid, the right hearing aid button will turn your hearing aid volume up, and the left hearing aid button turns your hearing aids down. Other than that, it's pretty much the same functionality as group number 1. Group number 3 has a pretty cool tap control feature, which is a spin-off of the accelerometers built into the hearing aids, which I'll cover in more detail later on in today's video when I'm talking about how these hearing aids automatically adapt their settings based on your movement. But from a user point of view, the following hearing aids allow you to answer or decline phone calls by tapping your ears. Plus, the Phonak Infinios take this one step further, and you can even activate Siri or Google Assist without needing to get your phone out of your pocket. Whilst this isn't something that all of my patients use, those that do love it. Now, the downside of adjusting your hearing aids using the buttons on the back of them is it can be a little bit fiddly, especially if you've not got the same dexterity that you may have done in the past. And whilst your hearing aids will beep in your ear to notify you of any changes that you've made, it isn't the same as seeing what you're doing on screen on your phone. And this is why changing the hearing aid settings using the manufacturer's app has been a game changer in the world of audiology. Plus, it gives you access to a ton of other features which isn't possible with a button or two. Now, my plan isn't to go into too much detail on the apps today, as to be honest, they're all pretty similar. And I know today is going to be a lengthy video already. But if I have to choose my 2 favorite apps, I would hands down recommend both Phonak's My Phonak app and the ReSound Smart 3D app, as they're the most reliable, user-friendly and intuitive, plus they give you access to a ton of useful controls which you don't find in all other hearing aid manufacturers' apps. Now let's talk robustness. Every hearing aid that I'm covering today has an IP68 water resistance rating, meaning that they can technically be submerged in 1.5 meters of water for 30 minutes and they should still function afterwards. Now, this isn't just a rating reserved for hearing aids, it's a universal rating that you'll find in the likes of your smartphone that you're possibly watching me on right now. Saying that, 2 manufacturers, that's both Phonak and Starkey, have been tested to their limits to ensure that they can cope with the hammering that hearing aids are likely to take on a day-to-day basis, with robustness testing that includes both a simulated sweat test, seawater testing, saltwater testing, chlorinated water testing, and of course freshwater testing, which has been performed in a pressurized chamber. Phonak are boasting that they've added additional microphone protection, they've sealed the seams with silicone, they've coated the components with a paraline coating, which apparently, I'm told, is the same protection system that NASA use on their spaceships, and they've also removed the titanium pins holding in the receivers and then finally redeveloped the charger. On the other hand, Starkey's Pro 8 HydroShield waterproofing involves a Kevlar reinforced receiver, which is actually used in the military to make bulletproof vests. They've redesigned the acoustic ports, they've added an internal microphone mesh barrier and a silicone seal on the casing, and then finally they've added a specialist coating to all of the internal components too. Now the big question is, does this really matter? I would say that for the majority of you watching today, the standard IP68 rating will be sufficient for your needs. However, if you live a lifestyle that requires the next level of protection, then one of these 2 models may be the right hearing aid for you. I think you've gathered by now that in my reviews, I like to uniquely and excessively group the technology according to their functions. And when it comes to batteries, there is no exception either. So today there are 3 different groups when it comes to batteries and rechargeability. Firstly, we have those that use disposable batteries. And it may surprise you to learn that the battery life isn't determined by the hearing aid, but more by the size of the battery, with smaller batteries needing changing more often. These hearing aids use a size 312 battery, which lasts anything from 5 to 7 days. And then in a group on its own, we have the ReSound Vivia RIE13, which is the only hearing aid using a disposable size 13 battery, which I'm covering today, which should last from 7 to 10 days before it needs changing. According to a recent poll that I put out there in YouTube, the majority of you watching use rechargeable hearing aids rather than disposable batteries. And again, I can split rechargeability into 2 main groups. Firstly, those hearing aids that will provide you with around 24 hours of life, which has rightly been the industry standard since rechargeability came on the scene. And And with the second group of rechargeable hearing aids, such as those from both Phonak, Signia and Widex, you can expect north of 30 hours per 3-hour charge, with Starkey boasting a whopping 51 hours per charge. Now, in my opinion, these hearing aids weren't built with an extended battery life so that you can go partying for 3 days without needing to sleep. But it's all down to the decline in lithium-ion battery health over time. The chemicals inside these hearing aid batteries are exactly the same as those in your phone or laptop, etc., and are known over time to deteriorate in health, meaning that after a few years, they won't last the same length of time as they did when you first bought the tech. Now, whilst this doesn't matter so much with the phone or a laptop, if your hearing aids stop lasting for a full day, then you're in a bit of trouble. So the advantage of some of the newer releases with extended battery life means that in the future, if the health of your battery starts to decline, they should still last you for a full waking day. I find in clinic that as far as batteries goes, the patients that prefer disposable batteries are those that tend to travel a lot and don't want to have to remember to carry a charger with them, or those that just like the security of carrying batteries around with them. However, with rechargeable batteries, yes, there are differences in the overall performance of the batteries, i.e. how long they'll last, but I don't personally feel that this is a reason, again, to choose one manufacturer over the other, as long as they last you for a full day. On a side note, it's also worth noting that if they don't last you for a full day over time, most manufacturers will replace the batteries under warranty. If you've had any issues with this, let me know in the comments and I'll send a strongly worded email for you. You're welcome. Now, earlier I covered the various models of each of today's hearing aids, but just to make things clear, each of those models also comes with various technology levels too, with differing features around automation, how they cope in background noise, or how much clarity they'll provide, for example. Now, keep in mind that you will pay more for a more advanced hearing aid technology, and the prices will vary depending on the audiologist that you see. But here, next in today's video, are a list of each of those technology levels per manufacturer. This table contains all of the information that you need to know about the features in the Signia IX hearing aid. Here you can see the different features in the various technology levels for the Oticon Intent. Next, this table shows the various features that you'll have access to with the Widex Allure family of hearing aids. Here you can see the various features in each of the ReSound Vivia family of hearing aids. This table shows all of the differences between the Starkey Omega AI hearing aids. And then finally, these are the differing features within the family of Phonak Infinio Ultra hearing aid technology. Yes, I get it. There is a lot of information in each of these tables, and there are way too many features to cover in today's video. And I've got to be honest, I don't know if I can keep up this level of enthusiasm, blah, 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 for as long as it would take to cover them all. But I would suggest taking a solid look through each of those tables, look at the features that resonate with you, and then have a good chat with your audiologist about its suitability for your hearing loss and hearing difficulties. Actually, while I'm on the subject of audiologists, this is a nice segue onto choosing the best audiologist for you. So to get the best out of your ears, I am begging you to make sure that you find an independent audiologist who has access to every hearing aid manufacturer out there. Why do I say this? Well, most hearing aid chains and a few independent practices only work with a few hearing aid manufacturers. And in that instance, you're not necessarily going to be recommended what's best for you, but whichever hearing aid tech they have access to or personally get the best deal on. Not that this is the best comparison, but you wouldn't buy a TV from a shop that only sold one brand of TVs, would you? Or would you go to a store where you could compare a few different models? Think about it. Now, there are also a ton of things that audiologists should do to set up hearing aids, but often don't. And you can find details on what I mean by that in this video, which I'd recommend watching. Having Bluetooth built into hearing aids is pretty much an industry standard nowadays, meaning that you can stream phone calls, music, and the radio podcasts directly to both of your hearing aids. Plus, as I mentioned before, each manufacturer's app allows you to manually make adjustments to the settings on your hearing aids too. But of course, it isn't that simple now, is it? There are in fact various groups and different types of Bluetooth with pros and cons to the various protocols used, which I'm going to share with you now. And so as far as connectivity goes, I've divided the best hearing aids of 2026 into 5 different Bluetooth categories. 5 categories. Firstly, those that use classic Bluetooth, which was previously only Phonak until Signia joined the party last year, with the main advantage of classic Bluetooth being that they can connect to any tech with Bluetooth streaming capabilities. It doesn't matter if it's old or new, smartphone or otherwise, and it will even work with any landline phone that has built-in Bluetooth too, unlike any other hearing aid manufacturers. The second group of today's hearing aids utilize Bluetooth LE audio, which comes with a couple of limitations. For example, iPhone users can benefit from bidirectional Bluetooth, but that feature doesn't work on Android devices. In addition to that, there are also some limitations on which phones will allow Bluetooth streaming features. Group number 3 are the most recent releases from Signia, Resound, Oticon, Starkey, Phonak and Widex, who all have the newest version of LE audio, which makes them Auracast ready. Now, if you haven't come across Auracast, it is the future of connectivity, allowing for public venues to stream any sound with a higher quality and lower battery consumption directly to your hearing aids, such as announcements in train stations, football commentary, or church sermons. But wait, not all of these guys have activated it yet, much to my dismay. So if Auracast is important to you, then forget Phonak, Signia or Widex, as whilst it's built into these hearing aids, apparently, it still hasn't been switched on. And then finally, we have connectivity category number 4, which are those hearing aids that have built-in telecoil. Until LE audio and Auracast technology takes off, you'll still be able to access the loop system, which is essentially the 20th century version of LE audio, and allows for the streaming of sound in a public venue directly to both of your hearing aids. All hearing aid manufacturers, apart from Phonak and Widex, have at least one model that has a built-in telecoil. So there is no question that there are plenty of options when it comes to connectivity, and honestly it's the kind of tech that you don't realise how valuable it is until you've tried it, so do not underestimate how incredible these hearing aids are. Now, one final note on this, it's also worth me mentioning that oddly, the smartphone that you own can have an impact on the features that you'll get from your hearing aid. And in my opinion, there is no question that iPhones are the most versatile, sorry, Android users. So as you're doing your research, each hearing aid manufacturer has a compatibility list on their website showing which phones are compatible with their hearing aids, which I would recommend checking out later on after you've watched this video. Now I've got to apologise. I am sorry that it's taken me this long in a video about hearing aids to reach sound quality. In reality, there is too much to talk about in a single video when comparing 6 leading manufacturers, and there are a ton of features that I would love to expand upon when talking about sound quality. However, today I'm going to focus on each manufacturer's standout features and their pros and cons. I do also have individual reviews for you for each hearing aid that I'm covering today, which I will also link in the description to today's video. So kicking off with AI, both Phonak, Oticon, Starkey and Resound utilize some form of offline artificial intelligence within their hearing aids, meaning that they've trained them to categorize your environment and accurately decide upon the most appropriate setting for you in that particular moment in time. With Oticon claiming that their hearing aids are trained from a whopping 12 million different sound scenes, Resound claim over 13 million, Phonak 22 million, and then Starkey claim that their Omega AIs analyze up to 80 million data points per hour. So there's some pretty powerful computational power going on inside these tiny little machines, all ensuring that you're being delivered the right amount of sound for your hearing loss and that particular environment at that moment in time. But let's be honest now, it doesn't mean anything, does it? These are just numbers, doesn't mean anything. But what I think you'll like is what's coming next, so let's have a listen to them. We have access to one of the world's only, and dare I say, most advanced setups at our fingertips to be able to record how hearing aids work in noise and share it with you today. So get your popcorn ready and let's take a listen to each of today's hearing aids that have been set up to the same hearing loss and optimized to demonstrate how they work in background noise. How cool is this?
Did you hear the news last night? No, I must have missed it. Looks like we're finally getting a break. I mean, it's supposed to be sunny all weekend. Oh, yeah? Perfect timing. Maybe I can finally get out there and do some yard work. Yard work? My mind went to breaking out the grill. Well, that too. The lawn isn't going to cut itself, and the bushes have got me a little crazy. Oh, I think that's this year. I mean, I've been putting off staining the deck, but this year, maybe next year. Trees, bushes, deck. We'll just have to dream about the grill and the huge ice cold cooler. Did you hear the news last night? No, I must have missed it. Looks like we're finally getting a break. I mean, it's supposed to be sunny all weekend. Oh, yeah? Perfect timing. Maybe I can finally get out there and do some yard work. Yard work? My mind went to breaking out the grill. Well, that too. The lawn isn't going to cut itself, and the bushes have gotten a little crazy. I guess that's true. I mean, I've been putting off staining the deck, but this year, maybe this year. Trees, bushes, deck. We'll just have to dream about the grill and the huge ice cold cooler. Did you hear the news last night? No, I must have missed it. Looks like we're finally getting a break. I mean, it's supposed to be sunny all weekend. Oh, yeah? Perfect timing. Maybe I can finally get out there and do some yard work. Yard work? My mind went to breaking out the grill. Well, that too. The lawn isn't going to cut itself, and the bushes have gotten a little crazy. I guess that's true. I mean, I've been putting off staining the deck, but this year, maybe this year. Trees, bushes, deck. We'll just have to dream about the grill and the huge ice cold cooler. Did you hear the news last night? No, I must have missed it. Looks like we're finally getting a break. I mean, it's supposed to be sunny all weekend. Oh, yeah? Perfect timing. Maybe I can finally get out there and do some yard work. Yard work? My mind went to breaking out the grill. Well, that too. The lawn isn't going to cut itself, and the bushes have gotten a little crazy. I guess that's true. I mean, I've been putting off staining the deck, but this year, maybe this year. Trees, bushes, deck. We'll just have to dream about the grill and the huge ice cold cooler. Did you hear the news last night? No, I must have missed it. Looks like we're finally getting a break. I mean, it's supposed to be sunny all weekend. Oh, yeah? Perfect timing. Maybe I can finally get out there and do some yard work. Yard work? My mind went to breaking out the grill. Well, that too. The lawn isn't going to cut itself, and the bushes have gotten a little crazy. I guess that's true. I mean, I've been putting off staining the deck, but this year, maybe this year. Trees, bushes, deck. We'll just have to dream about the grill and the huge ice cold cooler. Did you hear the news last night? No, I must have missed it. Looks like we're finally getting a break. I mean, it's supposed to be sunny all weekend. Oh, yeah? Perfect timing. Maybe I can finally get out there and do some yard work. Yard work? My mind went to breaking out the grill. Well, that too. The lawn isn't going to cut itself, and the bushes have gotten a little crazy. I guess that's true. I mean, I've been putting off staining the deck, but this year, maybe this year. Trees, bushes, deck. We'll just have to dream about the grill and the huge ice cold cooler.
So tell me, which do you think was better? I would love to know your thoughts, so drop me a note in the comments beneath today's video. And so if hearing in background noise is a big challenge for you, you may want to be looking at these results as a reference for your next pair of hearing aids. Now, I was talking about AI before, and it's worth me mentioning that other manufacturers too, so such as Widex and Signia, also use AI, however in a quite different way. Both manufacturers allow you to make adjustments to your hearing aids via their apps, and then the changes that you make are compared to thousands of other hearing aid users in similar environments, with the hearing aids then adjusting the settings accordingly. The only downside of this form of AI, in my opinion, is that it requires your input, and the majority of patients that I have would rather have everything automated if possible. Now, working alongside its artificial intelligence, both Oticon, Phonak, Starkey and Signia utilise accelerometers or motion sensors in their hearing aids. Now, this concept isn't entirely new in itself, with Signia first introducing motion sensors in their technology back in 2019, Phonak in 2020, Starkey in 2023, and then Oticon joined the party in 2024. Now, if you're sat there thinking to yourself, why on earth would a hearing aid have built-in motion sensors? That is a fair question to ask. So hold on tight, as you're going to love this. Essentially, they provide information to the hearing aids based on your movement, anticipating in greater accuracy your hearing needs for that specific situation or that moment in time. In practice, this means if you're sat down in a restaurant, you would normally want to hear the person speaking in front of you, and perhaps a little to the side too. However, as soon as you stand up and start walking, you would normally want to hear the person by your side as you're walking along, as it's unlikely that you'd have somebody walking in front of you and backwards. The motion sensors will help to recognise this and adapt accordingly. Whilst motion sensors are available within both Oticon, Phonak, Starkey and Signia, some manufacturers only include this feature in their rechargeable models. So in my opinion, this should be another factor to push you towards rechargeable hearing aids. Honestly, rechargeability is the way forward. Now, I know that ReSound hearing aids also have built-in motion sensors too, so for any of you avid hearing aid fans out there, and I haven't forgotten about them, but they're solely used as a tap control feature for answering and hanging up phone calls, whereas other brands lean harder into motion adaptation as their flagship feature. Now, in all honesty, trying to navigate your way in a world of hearing aids, and also I've got to say there's a lot of misinformation out there, is tough. You'll see different reviews online from different hearing aid users conflicting one another, and to be honest, when it comes down to sound quality, in my opinion, online reviews are pretty useless. Other people's hearing won't be the same as yours, they won't have the same challenges as you do, and remember, hearing aids come as a blank canvas, and it's the role of your audiologist to A, choose the right tech for you, and B, it's even more important, set them up properly. One thing that can help with your decision-making process is the work that we do here at Hearing Tracker, objectively comparing the latest hearing aids. And if you head over to our website, you'll be able to see the data comparing a ton of information to help you decide which hearing aid to buy. But before you do that, you have to watch this video highlighting 7 questions to ask your audiologist before agreeing to buy hearing aids from them.